Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I really appreciate seeing you all for our spring Small Cities meeting. My name is John Kennedy. I am the Economic Recovery Coordinator for the Council of Governments. And I just want to briefly give the agenda for this meeting, and then we'll move it to introductions. And so we'll first have our Executive Director, Michelle Holt, speak to us for a few minutes, followed by Mark Barkley and Karen Francis McWhite, who will introduce themselves briefly. I would please ask that our attendees please write your name, jurisdiction, or organization affiliation and email in the chat so that we all can have that and perhaps contact one another after the meeting. Then Assistant Director Barkley will give his presentation, followed by Outreach Coordinator Francis McWhite. And then hopefully there'll be some time for questions at the end. And so I would I'm going to hand the mic over to our Executive Director. Let me bring up the presentation. All right.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for the introduction, John. I am Michelle Holt. I'm the new Executive Director here at the Benton-Franklin Council of Governments, and by way of introduction of the COG, I think depending on who you are, you've had different interactions with us, and so we're doing a little bit of background to make sure that everybody understands who and what the Council of Governments is. So, of course, the COG is a voluntary association of the local governments in Benton and Franklin, in the Benton-Franklin County region. And we have very specific designated responsibilities from both our state and federal entities. So we are the Metropolitan Planning Organization and the Transportation Management Area for the Federal Highway Administration. For the state of Washington, we are the Regional Planning Commission and the Conference of Governments and the Regional Transportation and Planning Organization for this region. And then for the Economic Development Administration, which of course is a department of the U.S. Department of Commerce, we are the Economic Development District. So John, if you'll flip us to the next slide. It really kind of begs the question of, so what the heck is the Council of Governments role anyway? And really, our primary customer is our jurisdictions, our counties, our cities, our ports, entities like Benton-Franklin Transit and Benton PUD. And in a nutshell, what we really do is provide a forum for multi-jurisdictional decision-making and problem-solving. But we serve as a lead agency for multi-jurisdictional problems, and we provide planning so that our jurisdictions here in the Tri-Cities region can work together effectively and efficiently. And so having these small cities meetings is just one way that we can kind of help open that dialogue. So thank you for being here with us today, and I'll turn the time over to Mark Barkley.
Yeah, Mark, will you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thanks. Mark Barkley. I'm the Assistant Director of the Local Government Division here at the Department of Commerce, and just give you a quick thumbnail of what is in Local Government Division. So Public Works Board, the Community Economic Revitalization Board, we have community capital facilities, behavioral health facilities, early learning facilities, on all under kind of one community facilities hat. We have the growth management services, and then we have community development block grant, a research arm that helps with local government fiscal notes during session, and then they do studies in off session and stuff like that. So a whole host that's really supporting both cities, counties, local jurisdictions throughout the state.
Thank you, Mark. Karen, will you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Karen Francis McWhite. I work in the Community Engagement and Outreach team at the Department of Commerce, currently the Central Washington representative. So started just before COVID, so have not had an opportunity to meet any of you in person, but hopefully soon. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Mark. Assistant Director Barkley, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Next slide. So again, within commerce, these are kind of the buckets that we support across the state, both legislatively, policy, and through programs and funding. Again, through local government division, my focus is mostly in the area of infrastructure, community facilities, and planning. Next slide. So our focus for the agency is really throughout our response and our response to recovery, these four big areas. And we'll touch a little bit, one of the intentional pieces we wanted to touch on was data, but also want to touch on our ability to equitably distribute and engage with communities throughout the state. How can we support small business? And really this high impact investment is really the right project with the right funds that can create the impact needed for the community. So how do we bring the community together to understand that? How can we bring the funders again to understand that? And how can we make the best project fit the best for the community? Next slide. And quickly, there's so much here, so I don't want to go into too much detail. Please note the link at the bottom of the slide. That's where you can go dig in and really kind of dig around in some of this data. But here's the four big buckets that we're really focused on. And this is a tool as much for you as it is for us, because how we're using this is really to see a measurable difference, if that's possible, in the work that we're doing. So we created this dashboard really to help us understand how our response, and it will be slow, and it'll be slow to be able to be measured, because there is such a lag to some of these areas, but really to hopefully understand trends over time as we're responding to different aspects, both as our COVID response and our recovery response across the state. And I just want to highlight, if you look at your county regions there, both Benton and Franklin, you can click on each one of those counties and dig a little deeper. So please go in there and dig around and let us know. And if you have any feedback, please feel free to shoot me an email, and we can work with you and helping you if there's something needed, or if there's something lacking, or if there's more information that you would like to engage with us in response to some of these areas. So again, please, and if you notice on the right, really looking at how our funding, those numbers are the coronavirus or CARES Act response dollars. We are just now introducing ARPA, or the American Response Plan dollars. So those are coming, and we are slowly building our programmatic pieces that will tie into this dashboard, and we will be linking even those delivery and how we're issuing those dollars, and those will get tied into this data. So please stay tuned as we start rolling those dollars out. We want to truly lash up, and the other partnership we would like to make with you is both in ARPA, cities and counties are receiving direct dollars. And so we'll want to make sure we understand what you're doing, and can we engage with you, the counties and the cities, to take what you're doing and incorporate it for a full state picture. So a lot more to come here. Next slide. Again, here's some of the big areas that we're really wanting to touch on. Again, broadband is such a big topic because we're all working distributively. Housing, both housing for affordable housing, rental assistance, other housing costs, or even talking about utility costs. How we're supporting small business. Transportation's a big topic. Public works, you'll touch on that as we think about both the state budget as well as the federal funds. industrial sectors, regional economies, and childcare. Absolutely a big topic of late. Next slide. So just to really give you a kind of a 30,000-foot view of the American Rescue Plan for the state and local fiscal recovery fund, you have to think about those being kind of broken apart in a couple of different buckets. So on the left side, we're going to talk about the state portion of those $350 billion. Underneath that state recovery fiscal fund, there is approximately $4 billion in there. And there's some couple of different buckets. That's why I'm hesitating in there. So that's just state fiscal recovery. Tribes will have their own allocation as well as they, and I believe those numbers are just now starting to come out. And then on the right side, it's the local. And so there's two buckets there. We'll focus first on the local fiscal recovery fund for metropolitan cities, non-entitlements, and counties. So non-entitlements, just so you understand that, the Treasury didn't want to manage all the small towns. So 50,000 or less, roughly. There's some above, some below that got direct from Treasury. But right around that 50,000 mark, a chunk of money came to the state where OFM, Office of Financial Management, has 30 days. So they're not going to do anything with it. They're just going to literally set up a system and push those dollars out. You know, not like the CRF dollars happened during the CARES Act. These dollars will go direct. They'll get their apportionment. They're just going to go through the state. But they're not going to stop. There's not going to be any decrement. They'll just mechanism-wise go through the state. So all those dollars, again, is where I was really interested in is how can the state programs and the legislature appropriated some of these funds, and we can talk a little bit about that. We're still trying to understand it all. And how can we coordinate either through city, county, or region projects that make sense? So you have a chunk of money, you have a project. You may not have enough money for that project because of different things and priorities you want to do. Is there a partnership with the state funds and the local funds to make a project whole? And that's what we really want to work on, because we have both state dollars and federal dollars, along with you have your local dollars and your federal dollars. How can we partner and think about projects across the state? That's really a big piece. And we're working with AWC, we're working with WASAC, we'd like to work with the COGS, and any regional collaboration that makes sense, especially in water, wastewater, stormwater, or even broadband. There's lots of ways that we can partner and really think about how to make a smart project and using our dollars wisely. Because mobilization costs, anything that we can reduce, so we're not mobilizing twice, we're not paying for permits twice, we're not doing things twice. If we can do them once. And the other thing that we like to talk about is let's not crack open the road. Let's not dig a trench down Main Street, but once. So if we're putting in water, sewer, let's throw in broadband while we're there, at least the conduit. So all those different aspects of it. Next slide. Here's a little bit more detail. Again, left side is state, the right side is local. Much of the requirements, much of the uses of funds are exactly the same. So use of funds, public health to cover costs related to, lost revenues to those issues. So in other words, if you had to spend money to pay for COVID related costs, you can replenish those. Economic impacts. And last but not least, this was kind of added in if you were watching the bill like I was closely. The Senate threw this piece in: water, sewer, and broadband. So those are really interesting and great investments that we can do to spur future investments growth and opportunities for communities throughout the state. One thing that I love to say, and I don't know if he's an author and he used to work at the Department of Commerce. He runs a blog. His name's Maury Foreman. I always accredit this to him. He goes, infrastructure plus community development equals economic development. And that's just so powerful because it works both ways. And so as we work on infrastructure, it's the question of, but for what? We're not just building a water system just to have a water system. It's for future growth. It's for fire flow. It's for opportunities, or it's a health issue, or lots of different things. So as we build a water system, how can we make sure that we're tying it in with other community needs for housing development, a new school, a fire department, they need fire flow in this area, other things. So let's make sure we're thinking about the holistic community need as we're thinking about addressing infrastructure requirements. Next slide. Again, tribal governments, we're still sorting through this, lots of zeros here, but tribes, and this is another place to truly collaborate, engage, and ensure that we're working together, because tribal governments have a lot of similar needs that within the community, and might even be an economic engine in a community. How can we partner with, how can we coordinate with our tribal governments that are next to us, you know, and make sure that we're engaging with and can collaborate and make sure some of these infrastructure, broadband, other things can be worked together and use, again, using our money wisely. Next slide. Last but not least, the last bucket is this, and the state is putting together a plan for this bucket. We will be working with you. We're thinking about broadband. We're thinking about other areas to connect our state to really address some of the digital divide, equity within broadband, other things. And we're really thinking about this area of public health. How can we do public health via broadband, other things that can really, I mean, school, et cetera, et cetera. So we're really thinking about this. We have to put a plan together at the state, and we'll submit that to US Treasury, and we'll coordinate and receive these dollars probably sometime summer-ish to, again, deploy across the state and really get after some of these issues. Next slide. Again, I sent out a few items that gives you an overview of some of these things, a little bit more detail. There's some Q&A and some other documents, but those websites are really informative. We're going to have a small but mighty team that can be a resource to communities throughout the state. So if you ever have any questions whatsoever on interpretations or, you know, deployment of funds, anything, please give me a call, send me an email, and I can have a team work on that and get back to you quickly. So really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mark. And I will be sending out those documents that Mark provided me after the meeting so that all attendees on the email list will receive those documents. Thank you, Mark.
You bet.
Karen? Oh, yeah.
Great. Yes, thank you. Hello. If we can go to the next slide. To Mark's point, Commerce has several kind of small but mighty teams, both certainly within local government division and within the team that I'm on is the community engagement and outreach team. I did want to highlight that we are currently searching for someone to take the southern half of South Central. So if you know of someone who has robust community engagement experience, who is bilingual, and who can support economic development, listening and visioning and all that good stuff in the region, please direct them to our webpage. And to that position, we are getting ready to start interviewing some folks as I speak. But until they are brought on, I actually have the full Central Washington territory. And I'm realizing that I'm starting to do more in person but pretty much only on Mondays and Tuesdays because of childcare, which is going to come up again in my presentation as well. Next slide. All right, so to give you a sense of not only, like, I think Mark did an amazing job of kind of giving us a sense of what we can expect as a state coming from those federal dollars, but I think it's important to also remember the long partnership that Commerce has with Benton and Franklin counties, the type of investments that have been made. I mean, just since 2019, there have been a variety of investments that really touch on the entire book of business that that Mark went over earlier. And just wanted to highlight just a few of them because really I would need a lot more slides than this to illustrate the diversity of programs that have been supported in the region, including, of course, the pandemic response support funds. Often when people think of commerce, they think explicitly or rather narrowly to brick and mortar businesses, right? But the Department of Commerce is actually so much more. It's housing, it's crime victim support and advocacy, recognizing that if people are wounded and harmed, they can't actually be as integrated into the wellness and operation of the society. There are youth programs, there are community recreation and community facility programs, partnerships with other agencies like ArtSWA, partnerships with DCYF, the Department of Children, Youth and Family, in supporting early learning development and childcare partnership planning grants. I mean, and the energy component is certainly growing as well, which will be particularly important as this 2018 energy code has finally been, approved, and it definitely aligns with our energy office as well. Next, please. So thinking, whoops, back it up. So thinking about the broad book of business that, or the broad buckets that Commerce has, is a way of hopefully helping folks think broadly about the type of partners who can come to the table. Absolutely, small cities. Mark Barkley and his team at Local Government Division is absolutely kind of your first stop, right, for figuring out a lot of the infrastructure work and the supports that are specific to and that cities are can specifically apply for. But there are a lot of programs that are available through nonprofit partnerships, sometimes even for-profit, depending on what the outcome, what the project is. We're seeing that around childcare support. We're certainly seeing that around affordable housing models. Rural broadband. If you can see this, well, you'll probably get the link and everything that's sent out by John afterwards. But if you have not taken that 1 minute, and for real, it is a 1 minute broadband speed test survey, please do take it and spread it broadly across your networks, because it's going to help our broadband office really establish the baseline of what the real speeds are, whether you're in the country or in the city. And that baseline is going to basically be help inform the investments that are coming in to support the expansion of broadband across the state, quality high-speed broadband across the state. Thank you. So, no, go ahead, yeah. So just wanting to think about it, I was talking with John and Davin earlier, when we were starting to brainstorm for this conversation with you. And they mentioned the Prosser Community Building Project. And what I'm realizing, like, I don't know much about it. So like I said, if the new person who's hired isn't brought on soon, then I'm gonna get down there first, right? And get some one-on-one time with you. But I want you to think about how you can relate to commerce around this one sample project, right? So want a community building in Prosser. Well, our team, the community engagement team, is really helpful with getting community visioning work going. We do that a lot. We do it with communities as big and small. We're very happy to come out and help create that community engagement process to figure out, well, what does the community actually want? What will they support? Because that can then inform the different types of resources that you can go for, right? Once you know for sure how it's going to be used. planning and feasibility. There are lots of different resources within the Commerce wheelhouse that can support planning depending on what the goals are for that building, right? We've got the Public Works Boards, we have the Building Community Facilities grant program, and same thing with the youth recreational facilities and building for the arts. I mean, I don't know how big this community building is supposed to be, but there are funding lines that can help support bits and pieces of it, right? So you start braiding capital or stacking capital. And we have partners within the Department of Commerce and affiliated with us who can help you think through what does that capital stack look like, which types of funding and other types of resources play nicely together. Facility development, the legislature did authorize some additional funds for early childcare facilities. We're all really excited about that, as well as some other funds for Public Works and for Building Communities Fund. And then we saw that the coronavirus, we're waiting for those details, as Mark said, around the coronavirus capital facilities support. So a lot of those things are passing through us. And energy. I'm getting ready to build a house. So now I'm looking deeply at that 2018 energy code to make sure my place can be built, right? The residential reality isn't nearly as complicated as municipal and commercial, but we have an incredible team in Commerce that is helping create supports for all sorts of weatherization, energy innovation projects, co-located projects where the waste energy or the waste heat from one project is helping to heat and or fuel another one. What they call it, industrial symbiosis. So there's incredible partnerships and resources that can be leveraged across our book of business to support a particular project. We just need to know what it is. Next slide, please. So I realize we've been kind of talking at you a lot, but if there are some things that you are currently working on that you think, I'm going to want to circle back to Commerce on, please feel free to put it in the chat even now, because we would love to partner with you to help you assess your needs. We're not going to tell you what to do. We're not in that business, right? It's not for government. We've got the answers. We want to work with you. We want to know what your needs are. We love the diversity of people and cultures across the state, and you know what your visions are. You know what your goals are, and we're here to be partners on that. Our team in particular does a lot of tracking, funding, and technical assistance opportunities. I often let folks know about programs that aren't even associated with Commerce if they are relevant to the project that they have, we have team subject matter experts across the agency who are really looking forward to working with communities to really prepare the applications up front so that it improves the likelihood of a yes as opposed to a no. Right? So let us be part of your goal setting and your visions. So yeah, if there are things that you are working on that relate to anything that you think, that kind of touches on those 8 buckets of work with the Department of Commerce, feel free to chat it now or email us after, because we really are excited about working with you. Next. And I just really love this slide. I think we are all navigating resilience right now. It's been one doozy of a year. And even before this last year, for many of us, things were challenging and rough anyways. So through that journey, may we have compassion for ourselves and compassion for each other. And certainly that is an ethic in our agency and as an ethic in our team and how we like to show up and work with communities. Next slide. So thank you. Thank you for having us today. Open for questions.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Mark, for this great presentation. And actually, we have 2 individuals from the city of Prosser. I don't know if you would get any questions for Karen and or Mark, since the community building example was in the presentation. but we have about 25 minutes for questions.
Sorry, yeah, Steve here from City of Prosper. Yeah, I took some notes and but I'll probably put those together and send them out in an email on that. Unless you want me to talk about what we were envisioning for that project.
It's entirely up to you. I don't really have a vision because I haven't A, been there yet, or B, know much about it. So,
Well, one,
like I
love
said, we
Prosser.
don't tell you, we listen to you.
We love to stop for wine at Prosser. How's that?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
always.
But I would be interested in it. Are you looking at both a kind of public and private, or are there going to be businesses located in that community facility, or just a
What we're
little
looking-
general guideline?
Yeah, sure. So what we envision is we have multiple buildings and different facilities that currently house different entities, some of them by lease, some of them are like the library, the museum. These are all their own agencies, but they're really partner agencies for the city. And we're looking at consolidating, two reasons. We're looking at consolidating into a single common building. One, because there's some efficiencies to be generated by that. For example, the library does painting classes, so they have to set up, an area to do these painting classes. The senior center or the seniors at the community building also do that, and so they have to set up that space. So in a common building, we could create a purpose-built section that they could all share that. Same with the museum, our Meals on Wheels program. So we're thinking of putting all of these in the building. And the other thing that we've really seen a trend in is the lack of volunteers. So each of these groups are fighting for volunteers. And we think that that smaller and smaller pool can be more efficiently divided up amongst the group if it was not volunteering for a specific group, but just volunteering for the group. So the library may need help one day with their volunteers moving books around, or the museum the next day doing something else. So it's a way looking forward to share a volunteer pool as well. And sorry if it's echoey here. It's we're in a common room, so. But anyway, yeah, that's the vision for this community building, the library, all of our partner agencies, maybe even the Boys and Girls Club, and allowing them to share purpose-built spaces that they all have common interest in, and then again pulling the resources.
And so do you have, is this a building that already exists, but you're planning to repurpose or expand, or is this going to be building from the ground up?
It would be building from the ground up. And then on some of the structures like the museum, for example, it's just an old pole building in the park, and we would envision that being torn down and just expanding the open space of the city park in that area. So, and then other facilities like the one I'm in right now is the community center, either selling those or repurposing them to help offset some of the costs of the new facility.
Can't seem to type. There was a question mark about the broadband infrastructure grant opportunity coming out from the feds. It's out right now. Do you know? So I don't think we have our broadband dollars yet coming from the state. And I think the bulk of the state broadband dollars are federal. Am I misinformed?
You're spot on. So there's, under the Office of Broadband, about $260 million in local, state and local, so the state portion of the local recovery fund. Then there's another, I think 16 million out of the capital construction fund that will come later. Both the Public Works and Curb Board's funding about 46 million in public works and 25 and curb are part of that capital. So those will come, I mean, there's applications being built, but their actual funding will sometime later in the summer, if those funds will be received as we develop the plan, submit it to the U.S. Treasury and get those funds in. So again, we just received interim federal guidance on the local state recovery fund. So we're literally 150 pages of U.S. Treasury guidance along with the state capital budget instructions. We will need to build guidelines, build contracts. So we would probably foresee initial applications for those dollars July, August, September, somewhere in there. There'll be plenty of notice. We'll actually be reaching out to stakeholders to provide input on our program guidelines. So there'll be dialogue as we kind of roll those programmatics out. But a large chunk of money, and also with that money is 50 million in state capital construction dollars to pursue even more federal money. So we're going to create a bucket of state match for a community that would want to go after FCC, USDA, or even other federal opportunities. We would partner with you and we would support match dollars for competitive projects for additional federal monies that might be out there and open grants as communities want to pursue those. And we're actually, believe it or not, scary as it may seem, keeping an eye on the feds, because an infrastructure package looming this fall might include even more broadband. So we're very, very attuned, keeping our ear with the feds as the infrastructure discussions continue in DC. So bottom line, stay tuned to that website where you can take the survey. The Office of Broadband, Russ Elliott. If you have any questions, I can link you up with him. He's truly an expert on broadband and can meet with any community member thinking about wanting to stand up a BAT team. There's funding to help you do some feasibility, as well as support a community action team on broadband. Lots of other things, not just digging the dirt. We can help support a community really truly thinking about what they want to do with broadband. And I can't say enough about that broadband survey. The feds, congressional leaders are looking at Russ Elliott's map that people are taking. You get one little red dot on that map, and it's full of them right now, but we want more. And if you have associations with school districts or your home school, whoever, if you can get the kids to go take that, that's even more impactful, because we then understand that, you know, children at home that have low capacity broadband, have struggling to do their schoolwork, all those things are really important to, you know, push on the appropriators to really fund. And we're really, those are our prime constituents that we're trying to reach to make sure that this next school year, they're not having to drive to a Wi-Fi hotspot to do their homework.
So, sorry, Steve, again, I was reminded in chat to bring up another thing. Wasn't necessarily covered, but we had a fire at Prosser, so we currently have no police department or city hall. That just happened a couple weeks ago. So if there's anything in that recovery or anything there that we could use for that, that would be really helpful to pass on to our finance department or city administrator or anything like that.
If you can send me an email, mine's in there, and I will send you a point of contact at our community development block grant that might have some emergency funds immediately to help you. But yes, let us take that, understand it, and make sure that we understand all of the opportunities and that we can support you. And then we also have, as Karen said, hugely we partner with like USDA. They might be able to help you with rolling stock, fire engines, police cars, those types of things, not just physical structure. So if any of those things are damaged, so we want to understand the totality of the impact of your fire. Just so you know, we're working with Malden every day. I mean, so yes, if there's a fire impact, there's opportunities for us to help you. And even our state treasury can help with rolling stock in some other areas. So there's different facets that we can kind of come together and really go in on how best to support those facilities and departments.
Perfect, thank you. We'll get that out to you.
Stephanie, please.
Thanks, John. Hi, I'm Stephanie Swanberg with the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce. I really apologize for being late. I was in another meeting and there wasn't enough buffer time, so I'm sorry about that. But one thing I did want to bring up, Mark, was that the Chamber heavily advocated for broadband, and we're just very concerned with what we're hearing from businesses and educators. And the two bills that we supported and worked on, Wellman and Hansen, were signed at the same time. I don't know how that, how does that affect the timing on when that money gets out? I was really excited to see that PUDs and ports would be able to have some authority there. What are your comments and thoughts on that, Mark?
No impact on the funding. So it's just the authority for PUDs to operate as a retail. I'm not a lawyer, nor am I a policy analyst. So my one minute understanding is that I believe I saw in an article that even Secretary of State's going to go get a legal review of both bills being signed simultaneously and determine if there's a conflict between the two bills. Otherwise, they'll both stand and they'll both support PUDs operating. It's definitely out of my league, understanding all those legalities, but it basically, bottom line, PUDs now have authority to operate. With that said, no impact on our funding. So if a city, a county partnered with, you know, an ISP wants to do some public broadband development, we are here to help. We are just unwinding all the federal and state, you know, rules and building that program. So we hope to have opportunities soon after budget execution around 1 July, but there's just so much. So I don't want to say 1 July, I want to say somewhere around there, we will be opening up opportunities for funding. And Russ Elliott and is new to be number 2. Don Eichner is coming on. So he's literally building his team and growing that team to be responsive to those dollars. So we are really putting both feet forward to really get out there and understand what the community's needs. And I can't say enough about feasibility studies, really understanding. So as soon as those opportunities open, grab one of those and really work with your community, and even the support of kind of the term BAT team or broadband action team. Really, there's lots of models. Go steal a model from another jurisdiction that's already stood one up. They're really powerful and they really help. And it's really good to have, as you mentioned, the libraries, the schools, the town halls, the senior centers, business centers, communities, youth, old, all bringing that voice together. So then you really truly understand what it takes to build out your community. And I tell you, I mean, there's many communities that are literally fiber to the home, fiber to the business, and it's powerful. And it's making so much of these, it's not a derogatory term. I live in Rainier, Washington. I think we have about 500 people, and small communities become powerhouses because they can reach out to the rest of the world because they now have access. And that is truly impactful on communities and really, really powerful.
We have a little bit of time for other questions, another 10 minutes. Are there any other questions or comments that Mark and Karen can answer or address?
Good afternoon. This is Devin Diaz with the Council of Governments. Early in your presentation, Mark and Karen, you mentioned funding for water infrastructure projects. Was that true? I was wondering if Roscoe might be willing to share with the group a little bit about some of their needs. I know they have a well down at Flat Top Park that is in need of replacement, and I know they're looking for funding.
Thanks, Devin. So I had my computer locked up right in the middle of Karen's presentation, so I didn't, and then it decided to do updates when I turned it off and rebooted it. So I'll have to get the recording back to see, but yeah, we've got one of our wells that end of 2019 had some subsurface event occur, lost production, actually was pumping more air than water. So we had a lot of entrained air going in the system. It looked like skim milk, which is wonderful. And so they said, well, your sand screen's collapsed, and so you need to replace it. So you pull it out, do that, put it all back in, and go to start doing pump testing. It still won't produce water. So it's got multiple issues. So it was originally constructed in, I think, 62. And so it's been rehabbed to death. We've got a hydrogeologist that looked at it and just said, you can keep throwing a couple $100,000 into this. At the end of the day, I think the telling thing was it's not constructed to current Department of Ecology standards today. It actually has got some holes cut on the side where it looks like years ago they tried to, mix different layers of an aquifer together. Yeah, so it's pretty bad. It has chlorine gas, so it's got the old style technology.
Yep.
And located at the intersection of State Route 224 and Bombing Range, which is the corner of the east-west arterial and north-south arterial, in the middle of a community park that holds regional events there. So it's not the greatest place, next to schools. So everybody knows what chlorine gas is. And so the hydrologist and the study, the consultants come back and just said, you're throwing more money at bad. It's time to move over and re-drill, and it's the opportunity to get rid of the chlorine gas and upgrade the technology with it. So it's one that we submitted to both Cantwell and Murray's office as part of their community projects. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's about $2.5 million to redo this well.
So yes, and good timing. I absolutely appreciate you going after federal money. If you want to hedge your bet and put in an application, Public Works Board will be opening soon. Want to shy away from Department of Health as well. And we actually stole Chris McCord from Department of Health, and he now kind of oversees both Public Works and Curb. He's an expert in some of this, so if you need any kind of conversation on kind of where you're going and your path, Chris is the guy. So shoot me a note. I can link you up with your Public Works guy. Happy to engage, but there's multiple opportunities there for funding. So let's kind of maybe hit all of them, and whatever the best one works for you, we absolutely get that. And so no harm, no foul for applying for multiple, knowing that you prefer this one.
Yeah, I'd like the federal grant, but Public Works Trust Fund is still good. I'm glad to see that they got funded again this year. That's great. That's been the go-to for infrastructure here at West Richland.
Yeah, great.
And Roscoe, Eric, and Steve, I will connect you with Mark and Karen by email after the meeting so that you guys can get into conversations, and we'll be happy to be part of any kind of collaboration and help however we can with your projects going forward. And I know Karen and Mark will too. So we have time for one more question or comment. Does anybody have one final comment or question that they would like to ask or give before we close today? Okay. Well, then oh, Devin, you want to say something?
Okay, this is Devin with the Council of Governments, and I wanted to thank both Mark and Karen for tuning in today and sharing with us all the cool things that the Department of Commerce is doing, and also wanted to thank the small cities for also coming to the meeting. And this is, as most of you know, this is John and I's second I think small cities meeting. We're looking to do many more of these and continue to build a relationship with the Department of Commerce and our jurisdictional partners. So please do not hesitate to reach out to either John, myself, Michelle, Fatima. We're all here to help and make the most of these opportunities. So thank you.
And please, if you have future meetings, I mean, I don't want to steal, I know local government's the best division in the Department of Commerce, but I know Karen can hook you up with our economic development and division, Chris Green, or Diane Clance in community services and housing, or Michael Furs in energy. So if you have other topics that you're really interested in, please don't hesitate to invite my partners in crime here.
Oh, yeah, we will. Don't worry. Well, thank you so much, Karen and Mark, for your time. Michelle, you want to close us out?
Just thank you all so much. I just echo what Devin shared, and we're happy to be here to be a service. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
Bye.